Hi, I'm Randall, Senior Editor at TechForge Media, and with me today is Mathew Payne, who's the Principal Field Security Specialist at GitHub. So, Mathew, can you tell us how do you ensure the security of your code repositories and prevent unauthorized access or modification?
Yeah, sure thing. So I think the first thing that we focus at GitHub is the security of our users, and make sure that, for example, that the code we are writing or our users are writing is secure. So my kind of focus has always been on securing the code that my users and customers write. And also, of course, you can like set up and configure as much barriers to secure your repositories from unauthorized access. And there's a lot of mechanisms in GitHub that allow you to prevent the pushing of malicious code or unauthorized code as well.
What are some of the criteria or metrics that you use to measure the effectiveness of your security measures?
I think that's a great question. I think one of the things that I always look at is definitely when it comes to like the success criteria metrics. One of the most important things to me is things like the false positive rate and the mean time to remediate of security vulnerabilities that are being detected inside your code. This, I think, is one of the most important metrics of, hey, if I'm producing too many results from my tool that I'm using, my developers are going to start really pushing back on using this tool, and we want to be partners with those developers, not against them, which we kind of have been in the security industry a little bit. So focusing on that, making sure that when a vulnerability is found, it's fixed in a very short period of time. So one of my biggest pet peeves, I'm sure a lot of people listening to this will understand, is the annoyance of having a security vulnerability that's open for a long period of time can be very frustrating for developers and security people. So I think those are the two metrics I personally focus at, and GitHub does as well.
And so how do you ensure that your security features do not impact the user experience on GitHub?
It goes back to that kind of first bit around false positives. I think that's probably one of the highest reasons why developers stop using security tools, or maybe they want to start not using it as much, or lots of different other things. So it's definitely a balance of false positives, reducing that to pretty much as zero as possible. I believe that zero is not a thing when it comes to that kind of thing, but also making it easier for developers to just integrate it into their day-to-day activities. So as they create new features, they open pull requests. We have a security tool that's run in our in actions, and it's detected a bunch of vulnerabilities, and now it is reporting to me in my pull request saying, hey, you should probably go and fix this. Go and fix it now before it gets to anywhere in production, because if it does, then the security team might be a little bit more annoyed at you, versus if we fix it now as you're developing it, you don't lose that context and a lot of other things as well. So we think that's really important for our end users.
So what are the common cybersecurity threats that GitHub's seeing at the moment or anticipate seeing in the future?
We see a lots of different things. I think the one that has been going around probably the most for the last few years now is definitely more on the supply chain security. That's definitely the hot topic, especially with specific things like a few weeks ago, the mock library started adding some interesting features that a lot of users did not like. So I think there's a lot of different things when it comes to that space, and we're seeing massive amounts of attacks in that specific area. Personally, I focus more on like securing the code that my users write. So I see a lot of threats when it comes to that kind of thing. But yeah, and there's a lot of people that try to get unauthorized access to people's repositories, of course. And if you do, for example, you want to make sure, for example, that like you haven't hard-coded secrets into your repository, because even let's say that your repository does get compromised, you want to make sure that they don't have your keys to your Azure or AWS instances, whatever privilege. So, yeah.
I think it's unfortunately a pretty much daily occurrence uncovering a latest supply chain hack. So how do you monitor and respond to security incidents or breaches on GitHub?
I normally work with my customers to secure their code bases. So generally speaking, when a customer comes to me and says, "Hey, we have a security incident, we need your help," I'm generally there to help them write custom rules to detect those kinds of specific scenarios and things. Or it could be like guidance and other things as well to help them.
So what tools or frameworks do you use for incident response and recovery?
That's really not my realm. It's more on the actual finding of the security vulnerabilities as soon as possible. We have a bunch of tools at GitHub. There's a lot of in-house stuff, but our kind of main ones that we use a lot is for things like CodeQL and Dependabot, mainly to detect both supply chain attacks with Dependabot. So if a security, for example, a new CVE drops tomorrow, the best thing we can do, of course, is that when we wake up or we get a phone call from our manager's manager, we can see that, for example, yes, we are impacted by the CVE, but actually we have a pull request automatically opened. A lot of cases, it might also automatically be merged, or it needs at least like a second pair of eyes to just review it. After that, it's pretty much maybe a click, and then that's well, after the deployment is rolled out, it's fixed. And I think a lot of customers really love that kind of thing as well. And it's the same kind of thing for CodeQL. So more, let's say, hey, we're having a new attack. Maybe it's an XSS or a SQL injection or something like that. We want to detect it with that tool. Make sure that we don't perform regressions as well, so we don't reintroduce that vulnerability. That's a big thing for some of my customers, that they want to detect that vulnerability but make sure it doesn't reoccur, right? There might be a reason why the developer added this XSS, so we want to make sure that next week they don't reintroduce it accidentally or anything like that as well.
How do you foster a culture of security awareness and best practices among GitHub's own employees and its users?
This is a really good one. You should most likely interview my CISO, but I think one of his big things is that he always asks during any all hands, he will go, "Hey, who's in the security team?" And he pretty much, if he sees one hand down that's not up, he hasn't done his job right. And I think making sure that it's a part of everybody's lives, from HR to developers to myself in the field team at GitHub. We want to make sure that everybody is aware of the security ramifications and the importance of our role, right? Like, as a GitHub employee, we have access to the infrastructure, for example, and things like this. Of course, a lot of that is locked down, but of course, if we're compromised, it could potentially lead to our customers being compromised. So it's really important for us to understand the importance of us taking security seriously, and making it easy for things to be secure, I think, is one of the biggest things as well. So if it's a pain for a developer, for example, to implement that security thing, that's really just not good. And it should be really easy for me to, hey, we can't automatically publish public repositories, or these kinds of different things make it a little bit harder. Not harder per se, but like, hey, a little bit more process to make sure you don't accidentally do X or things like this. So making it easy to do security, I think, is another big thing that we do at GitHub as well.
GitHub will be attending this year's Cybersecurity and Cloud Expo Europe. What will you be sharing with the attendants?
Interesting enough, it's a lot on pretty much what I've talked about today on this discussion. It's mainly focusing on how to make security easy for developers, kind of the some of the problems that at least we're seeing when I speak to my customers around security tools mainly, and processes. And it's kind of like a bit of focusing on those different types of subjects.
I'm sure this acted as a nice little teaser. So thanks for the insightful conversation today, Matthew, and I hope you guys have a great event.
Thank you.